On this hot summer day, it was especially noisy on the platform of the North Station. We saw off the Vladivostok Express. A new batch of winterers was leaving for Wrangel Island. Relatives, friends, acquaintances crowded around the blue dapper-looking cars. There was the usual station bustle. Those leaving laughed excitedly, gave addresses, and promised to write. The Arctic was waiting for them ahead. Long polar nights, gloomy expanses of Wrangel Island. Dr. Nikolai Lvovich Wolfson was in this batch of winterers. His wife Gita Borisovna Feldman, also a doctor, was traveling with him. Both of them were going to the Arctic and were full of hopes and plans. A lot of interesting work, the far north, the unusual environment of the wintering, happily excited Wolfson and his wife. The new head of Wrangel Island, Semenchuk, rode in the same car with them. A stout, middle-aged man with a sergeant's bearing and a frowning, insignificant face. His wife was standing next to him, a twirly, tastelessly dressed woman with a sharp, raspy voice and vulgar manners. But then the last bell rang. Passengers rushed into the cars, and under the discordant chorus of farewell greetings, the express quietly moved forward. And almost a year and a half after that, in the spacious office of the prosecutor of the Union, a thin, completely exhausted woman excitedly but firmly told about the nightmarish details of the events that took place on the wintering of Wrangel Island, about the death of her husband. Semenchuk, this gloomy, always for some reason frowning, slow-thinking man very quickly turned the winterers against him. They didn't like him, they didn't believe him, but they were afraid of him. Semenchuk's wife further aggravated the relationship. This painted, decked-out lady immediately felt like a boss. She even demanded that she be addressed no other than with the words "Comrade Boss." She interfered in all matters, gave orders, interfered with work. The couple perfectly complemented each other, and even in Vladivostok, they were joined by biologist Vakulenko, who became Semenchuk's right hand and a tender friend of his wife. The drunkard, the earpiece, and the schemer Vakulenko turned out to be quite a match in this pair. He willingly assumed the duties of a spy and a fiscal, and regularly reported to Semenchuk about the moods of the winterers. "But tell me, which ones are against me?" Semenchuk usually asked. "Wolfsons are unreliable, Konstantin Dmitrievich," Vakulenko reported in a sweet whisper. "Restless people. And besides, Jews, pay attention." On Wrangel Island, Semenchuk turned around in full breath. "Ice, sea. Naive, trusting, like children, Eskimos," they cried, seeing off the former chief of the island Meniv. They escorted him to the steamer in a crowd. Their children tearfully dragged Meniv back by the sleeves. The children didn't want to let him go. They loved him and were attached to him, as they love and are attached in the Arctic, where the harsh nature especially brings people closer and kindred. Meniv left the winter quarters in excellent condition. Under him, Wrangel Island was a truly Bolshevik outpost in the distant icy expanses. Another pipe of the steamer taking Meniv away loomed on the horizon, and Semenchuk, holding his hand on the open holster of his revolver, pronounced his first declaration. "The chief, now I have the authority, up to the execution. I will not spare you." It is difficult to describe all the outrages and crimes committed by Menchik. He disrupted the walrus hunt. He did not give the Eskimos boats and did not allow them to go to sea. He disrupted scientific work for winterers. The meat left by Meniv died because of Semenchuk's dishonesty, and the island's population began to starve. Food supplies were huge. They would be enough for several years. Semenchuk was obliged to supply the Eskimos, but he refused them this. "None of your business." Semenchuk rumbled when Wolfson begged him to help the Eskimos. "I'm the boss here, not you. Eskimo and quitters. Let them eat rotten meat. I won't give you anything." But there wasn't even any rotten meat. On the basis of hunger, scurvy began. In the west of the island, the local population tore a walrus skin from a kayak and cooked soup from it. Others ate flour sacks. Intimidated by Semenchuk, the winterers were silent. The party organizer Kurbovsky, a pitiful and weak-willed man, only threw up his hands, and, in response to general complaints, sadly declared, "Well, brother, will you do with him? It is necessary to endure." Endure? How to endure? Objected to him. After all, people are dying. What can you do? Kurbovsky sighed. We will all go under the eternal arches. That's what Pushkin said. At the trial, Kurbovsky explained his criminal behavior with fear for his own skin. In order to finally intimidate the winterers, Semenchuk organized something like a prison in the bathhouse. He put them there for the slightest disobedience. Semenchuk kept the worker Klichkin in this kind of isolation ward 2 times. The bath was not heated. After sitting in a cold bath for 2 days, Klichkin went on a hunger strike, and only after that was released. At the trial, Semenchuk literally said, "I didn't put him in the bathhouse." Klichkin landed there himself. So the days and months went by. Armed, Semenchuk menacingly walked around the winter quarters and always reminded me of all the rights I have, up to the execution. I will not tolerate disobedience. Here I am the owner, I am the court, I am the prosecutor's office, I am the border guard. I'm done. A spiteful Philistine and a man-hater, an adventurer who joined the party, he was intoxicated with his power, with the knowledge that he had so successfully made his way to a place where no one sees or hears him, except for a dozen terrified people. And only one person disturbed Semenchuk's peace. Dr. Wolfson. Nikolai Lvovich, it seemed, had nothing particularly heroic. A modest, nonpartisan doctor, a good friend, a cheerful person. That's it. Thousands of such people live among us. We know them, we meet them, and we don't find anything outstanding in them. But here is an unexpected combination of circumstances, and these inconspicuous acquaintances of ours, our everyday neighbors, suddenly stand up to their full height and show examples of courage and genuine heroism. Wolfson was desperately struggling with Semenchuk. He openly exposed his crime. He fought like a soldier for every jar of milk for a sick Eskimo child, for every kilogram of coal for a freezing sick Eskimo family. He personally went to Semenchuk, asked, demanded, filed a report, and protested. Wolfson was dangerous to Semenchuk, and Semenchuk decided to eliminate him. As a physical performer, Semenchuk outlined Startsov. Startsov is a parasitic type. Former Kolchak. For 9 years, he lived continuously on Wrangel Island. The Eskimos disliked and feared Startsov. They knew his cruelty, his stupidity. They thought he was capable of anything. Startsov raped Eskimos and, back in 1926 year, collected some arrears from the local population on the royal tax, saying that he had special powers to do so. Semenchuk's word was the law for Startsov, and on the orders of the head of the island, Startsov committed the murder of Wolfson. During the investigation and at the trial, these circumstances were established by an iron ring of circumstantial evidence. The testimony of all witnesses, the circumstances of the case, the surviving documents, the forensic medical examination, firmly established that the murder of Dr. Wolfson was committed on December 27, 1934th year, by the elders on the direct instructions of Semenchuk. The investigation into this case immediately ran into a chain of serious obstacles. It is not easy to uncover the picture of a crime committed in the distant Arctic, in an environment unfamiliar to the investigator many months ago. Everything in this case was unusually confusing and complicated. It was clear that a detailed clarification of all the circumstances preceding the death of Dr. Wolfson, the establishment of the life, relationships, and character of the winterers, every smallest touch, a household detail, a human characteristic, are of particular importance in the present case. The investigation went in this direction. I remember very well how during the 3 months of investigation in this case, I hardly managed to find new details and evidence. Compare, double-check witness statements, dig through documents, study literature about the Arctic and Wrangel Island, rummage through meteorological reports. But on the other hand, what a huge satisfaction each new, indecently established fact gave. The totality of these facts gradually created a slender finished version. After the general picture of life and relationships in the winter quarters was established and fully revealed, when the characters and morals of the winterers became extremely clear, the investigation turned to clarifying the circumstances of Wolfson's death. On December 25th, Semenchuk summoned Wolfson to him and ordered him to go on a sled to the opposite end of the island, to the bay. "I got a call," Semenchuk said, "from sick Eskimos. Leave immediately, provide assistance. Startsov will go as a guide." Later, Semenchuk said that the call came from a local resident Tagyu, whose son got sick. The investigation found that there was no call to the patient at all. The disciplined Wolfson immediately began to get ready for the road. But despite the fact that there was a blizzard and a difficult, dangerous path was ahead, Semenchuk refused the doctor in Doha and gave the worst dogs. This gave Wolfson the first suspicion that it was decided to end him. Then the doctor asked for a sleeping bag, and this was denied to him. The departure was scheduled for the 26th of December. The agitated Wolfson could not sleep for a long time. Late at night, when the doctor's wife was asleep, he scribbled his last letter by the flickering light of the nightlight. It was found after his death. This is the letter. All. In the event of my death, I ask you to blame this solely on the head of the winter quarters Semenchuk. My wife Gita Borisovna Feldman will tell you the details. Last greetings to my son Volodya, Dr. Nikolai Wolfson. This tragic note eloquently suggests that Wolfson guessed why he was being sent to the bay. Wolfson understood that he was terrible to Semenchuk as an exposer of all his outrages, all his crimes. On the morning of the 26th of December, Dr. Wolfson set out on his last journey on 2 sleds. And a few days later, one of the elders returned to winter quarters and said that the doctor was lost on the road. Semenchuk wanted to postpone the search for a doctor, but the winterers insisted on leaving immediately. Almost all winterers have left on the wanted list. And not far from Doubtful Bay, Wolfson's corpse was found with a fractured skull. The investigation established all the details of Wolfson's disappearance. The forensic medical examination confirmed the fact of violent death. A deliberate and premeditated organization of this murder was established. Startsov was confused for a long time in his testimony to the investigation and at the trial, until the prosecutor finally answered a direct question that he deliberately abandoned the doctor on the orders of Semenchuk. Startsov did not add one thing, that he had already thrown the corpse of the doctor he had killed. After the murder of Wolfson, Semenchuk faced a new task, to eliminate Feldman. The widow of the murdered man was also dangerous to Semenchuk. She demanded an objective investigation and directly accused Startsov and Semenchuk of murdering her husband. Crushed by grief, the woman was subjected to sophisticated harassment by bandits. By order of Semenchuk, the winterers did not dare to talk to her. She was denied fuel, although she was lying ill with a high fever. She was deprived of the right to communicate with Moscow on the radio, and was not given the radiograms received in her name. And only some of the winterers at night, timidly looking around, stole coal and brought it to Feldman's room. Coal had to be stolen, because Semenchuk forbade him to give out zhidovki. But Feldman still lived. This did not suit the head of the island, and he issued an order for her expulsion to a remote part of the island. A sled was prepared. A triumphant Semenchuk with a revolver in his hand rushed to Feldman and handed her an order. Immediately go to the point that will be notified to you specifically. Feldman, who had a temperature of 40 at that time, had difficulty getting dressed. But the winterers resisted Semenchuk for the first time. They refused to take out Feldman, realizing that this was a direct murder. "I won't be lucky," said the worker Klitschkin. "As you wish, I won't take you." "Be silent," Semenchuk shouted. "Do you want to go to the sauna again? Aren't you listening to the boss? Put at least the 3rd time in the bath. I will not be lucky." All of Semenchuk's crimes were exposed and proved. The Supreme Court was in session for 6 days. The main accused, Semenchuk, hissed angrily. He often refused to answer questions, denied the documents he personally wrote, and then admitted them again. Lied stubbornly and stupidly, no matter what. Looking at Semenchuk, I remembered how he behaved at the investigation. He also stubbornly lied and locked himself in. He was ready to give up on himself. Already at the end of the investigation, in the form of hopelessness of his situation, Semenchuk resorted to simulation. He declared himself a Martian. He was transferred to the prison hospital. Yesterday, I received a radiogram from Mars again. He was talking to the doctor with concentration. All is well. And then all my relatives and friends were arrested. 100 people are sitting. Semenchuk grimaced, wrapped himself in a sheet, and hid behind the bedside table of the hospital ward. An examination was carried out, which established that he was faking. And this card became a bit. Literally the next day, Semenchuk completely recovered. He stopped making faces and appeared in court without any attempts to feign insanity. And when Comrade Vyshinsky asked him about it at the trial, Semenchuk was a little embarrassed for the first time. Over the years of my investigative work, I have seen a string of criminal types and characters. I have interrogated murderers, professional bandits, brothel keepers, pimps, and child molesters. But I have never had to meet a person in whose personality there was not a single glimmer, not a single bright spot, nothing human. Semenchuk was exactly like that. He lived and acted knowing only one of his own, Semenchuk's wolf law. Startsov was sitting next to him in the dock. He pretended to be a simpleton, pretended that he did not understand the questions, and tried in every possible way to portray himself as a child of nature. The Supreme Court sentenced Semenchuk and Startsov to be shot.